Hi there, folks. It's Jonathan Denwood here from WP-Tonic, and this is our series of live workshops, which we also record and offer on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. I've got my colleague Haroon again with me. We've been doing, our last video was about podcasting and utilizing podcasting with the power of WordPress. We're going to go into that in a little bit more detail. We're going to be using a great WordPress plugin and also a great podcast hosting platform that I use myself on the WP-Tonic podcast. So we're going to be talking about the seriously simple podcasting plugin, how to configure it, and then how to get it to work with the fabulous Castos podcasting platform who produced this particular plugin. I'm now going to hand it over to my colleague Haroon, and we're going to go straight in it. Over to you, Haroon.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here as always. And last time we discussed the theory of podcasting with WordPress. We considered podcasting using WordPress versus dedicated podcast hosts, and we discussed three major players in the industry that are podcast hosts as well as plugin providers to integrate podcasts into WordPress. And we concluded with Castos being the best value for money. Today, we're gonna set up Castos on WordPress using their seriously simple podcasting plugin and upload a few episodes, and also use some front-end building tools to set up the podcast view on the site. So shall we get started?
Yeah, you should have, should be able to show your screen. So
right. And before I do that, let me just get some right pages on place.
Like I say, folks, one of the great improvements that Castos has recently introduced on their platform on the basic plan, which is the one that I personally use, which is fantastic value. It's around, if you pay it the annual plan, it's about around slightly under $200 a year, and you can have unlimited podcasts with unlimited podcast episodes on that plan. It does have a bandwidth limit, but it's extremely generous. And basically you can upload as many as you like. And the great thing that they've recently introduced is that you get some analytical data now, even on the basic plan. It basically shows you how many downloads per episode is getting, which is the basic analytical data that most podcasting platforms provide. Castos does provide some higher plans where they offer even more sophisticated analytical data, but that's what you basically need. But until recently you didn't have that, but they have introduced that, and it's of great benefit, and it makes their basic plan even better value. So I just thought I would give you that information, folks. Back over to you, Haroon.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm almost done setting everything up, and we are good to go with sharing the screen. And let's get started.
And of course, I'd like to point out that Haroon is looking rather dapper this evening. This morning for me, or this evening for him. So
thank you, Jonathan. Much appreciated.
Yeah, he's a connoisseur. He's a connoisseur of fashion tribe. So I thought I would mention that.
Thank you very much. I'm wearing my national dress today. It's called Shalwar Kameez. It's like a very loose kind of flowing dress, and it's extremely comfortable. So getting on with the tutorial. So we start off with visiting castos.com and clicking this 14-day free trial. You can start off with the free trial and then transition during the trial into a full-fledged paid account. So let's call this WP-Tonic, Harun at WP-Tonic.com, select a password. And once we click continue, now I'm going to close this window because I've already done that. We are taken to this page, their welcome page, where the first thing we tell them is how we're going to publish the podcast content. Is it going to be a Castos dashboard hosted podcast, or are we going to set it up using WordPress? So you don't really need WordPress for this, but hey, if you are working in the WordPress industry and everything else on your site is using WordPress, then why not have your podcast fully natively integrated into WordPress? So we're going to choose the WordPress site option. And let's reload it because it could have expired because of my login having expired. So let's reload this page. Make sure that we're logged in. And now click WordPress site. Yes, it's working. So over here, let's click get plugin, and it's going to take us to the seriously simple podcasting plugin page, download for free. But instead of downloading it from the repo, we can simply install it by looking it up from the repository in the WordPress admin dashboard plugin section. Add new. Seriously simple podcasting. And it's right here, the very first result. There are also lots of useful extensions for it. Like if you want to have a podcast with a speakers custom post type setup that links speakers with podcasts, that can be pretty useful. You can use this. In fact, I'm going to install it just in case we need it. And let's see, anything else? Yeah, we can have transcripts support to for our episodes, and we can have stats extension that shows you integrated analytics in the WordPress dashboard. So we've installed these three for now, and let's now activate the primary plugin and grab our API key from here. We've copied the key. Let's get back to the plugin. So as soon as you activate it, it walks you through a bit of a setup. Let's call it WP-Tonic. Since we're not going to publish it, let's just call it that. Everything WordPress. Proceed. Okay, for artwork, you have to upload a square image between 1400 by 1400 and 3000 by 3000. I didn't really create one, but I can very quickly see if I can find one, or just grab some image that I might have lying around. In fact, let me quickly create one, because that will probably take less time. I'm using MS Paint for this. After a long time, I'm actually creating something with MS Paint. I'm just gonna use the paint bucket tool to add a color, and that's about it. And let's call it cover.png. Oh, in case you don't see anything happening, it's because I'm doing that on the other monitor. So cover.png is created. Now let's bring it to, sorry, just a moment. I need to find where I saved it. Yes. So let's now drag and drop this image file here. and select it. That's going to be our cover image. Let's proceed. For categories, we can maybe set technology. And I don't think technology has any subcategories, but if you select some other categories like sport, it may have subcategories. Technology is like just a top level category of its own with no subcategories. Let's proceed. And this is basically setting up your RSS feed for the different podcasting platforms where you can submit your feed and it goes into the right category. Let's say you're gonna submit your podcast to Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify. You want to make sure that it shows up in the right category over there as well as subcategory. And then for hosting, we're gonna select, I already have a Castos account. We could even start a free trial from here, but it's just going to take you to the same page where we set up our account for a free trial. So we have a Castos account. Let's select the email, Harun@WP-Tonic.com. And the API token that we had copied from here, let's copy it again just in case, because I might have overwritten my clipboard while creating that image. So it's gonna validate the credentials and then let you proceed further. And that's it. You're pretty much done. You can watch a tutorial.
I've got to say, Harun, it's a really polished UX environment, isn't it? They've done.
Absolutely.
I think
no friction whatsoever.
I think it's one of the best onboarding experiences I've seen in a long while.
Absolutely. And even the sign up process, you sign up for a trial, you just give them the name, email address, a password, and that's about it. They don't ask you for payment information. They don't ask you for billing information. You can try it out, and within those 14 days, at any time, you can then provide that information if you want to continue. Otherwise, they don't have a card that they're going to charge if you forget to cancel after 14 days in case you decide it's not for you, which is great, which is a very ethical business practice. So let's get started, or we can either start creating our first episode right away by clicking let's start, or we can go to dashboard and then create it just the way we would create any post in WordPress. So here in the dashboard, now we have this podcast section added, just like you would for any custom post type or any plugin that adds a custom post type, be it products, be it courses, events. So over here in settings, let's see what we can change before we proceed with uploading our first episode. So over here in the general settings, we can either choose to use this podcast post type, or we can even use any of the other post types that are currently set up in WordPress as a podcast post type. And then that post type, any posts in that post type are going to be included in the RSS feed for your podcast, provided that post has all the episode data. If it doesn't have any episode data, then it's not going to be part of the feed. But if it has the necessary episode data, then it is going to be part of the feed. And by selecting any post type over here, Castos custom fields are going to be added to that post type's editor interface. So I'm just going to not select anything over here. We're just going to use podcast post type. And we can choose to have podcast episodes show up in the site's main blog feed, or if we want to keep podcasts separate from the main blog feed, we can just leave it disabled. And if you are going to submit the podcast to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, you have to enable this option so that specific fields for iTunes show up on every episode that you can edit, and make sure that Apple recognizes your podcast episodes properly. So this is what I recommend enabling for most people, because most people are gonna wanna submit their RSS feed to Apple Podcasts, to Google Podcasts, to any other major podcasting platforms. So enable this unless you know that you don't want to, or you don't need to. Let's save the settings and take a look at some player options. In fact, we'll revisit the player option once we have the player embedded in the front end to show you. Let's see some feed details. This is a topic that we set, and you can have any subtitle. Let's call the subtitle Everything WordPress. And for the description, a podcast with multiple weekly episodes featuring guests from all across the WordPress ecosystem, discussing all things WordPress. And you can have multiple primary categories, multiple secondary categories, multiple top-level categories and multiple subcategories. So let's say we want to select a secondary category of education with a subcategory of courses, and a tertiary category of, let's say, where would e-commerce fall? Business, I guess, and subcategory could be, let's say marketing. Yeah, since we discuss e-learning and marketing automation a lot, so let's just say we have these subcategories. And it's gonna make sure that you show up in relevant areas on major podcasting platforms. And this view feed link, let me first save after reviewing everything else. So the owner name, owner email address, this is important because if you want to claim the podcast on a third-party platform after submitting it, your owner address in the RSS feed needs to match the address that you've used for the account on that platform with which you've submitted your feed. They usually need to match. Some platforms let you use a different email address over here, but then they need you to verify that you also own the email address in the RSS feed if you are to claim your podcast on that platform. The rest of the fields are pretty much self-explanatory. You can mark it as explicit. If it's a show that's already finished, then you can mark it as complete. Locked would mean importing it into a new platform will be rejected. This is, I think, I'm a bit confused about it. Importing it into a new platform, does that mean a podcasting service, or does that mean something like iTunes, Google Podcasts, or something like Castos and Blueberry or some podcast host? So I'm just gonna probably leave it unchecked. And yeah, show type. Usually, unless your episodes form like a serial where every next episode carries on where the previous one left off, then you want to set it to serial. Otherwise, most podcasts are going to be episodic. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Over here, you're going to provide the URL that you get for your show when you submit it to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. These 4 are supported right over here in this interface. Let's save it. And then take a look at our RSS feed. The URL structure of the RSS feed is pretty simple and straightforward. It's the domain /feed/podcast. And currently we don't have anything over here. That's why we see it as empty. There's the website link on the feed. So this is an RSS feed, but it does have enough CSS to be able to, for visitors to be able to directly browse it as well. And now let's go back to the backend and create some actual episodes. And then maybe we can revisit some more of these settings if we need to. Actually, let's take a look at security first before we do that. So in case you want to password protect your feed, in case you don't want this feed to be available on any third-party platforms like iTunes or Google Podcasts, it's just a private podcast visible to your members only, and you want to give access to your members based on a username and password, you can set that over here. In redirection, you can, if let's say you migrate from this platform or this feed to some other platform, some other feed, you can set redirection over here. That's gonna make sure that any platforms that are using the old URL update it to the new URL. Usually you need to keep redirection enabled for a few days before it comes into effect across all platforms. Publishing, yeah, this might be a bit important. If you're synchronizing your podcast feed using a third-party service like FeedBurner, you can use your FeedBurner URL over here to publish. And there are podcast series as well that we're going to take a look at later. Series can have their own individual feeds as well. And over here, it also shows us the podcast archive link. Let's open it in a new tab because we're going to visit it very soon as we've uploaded some episodes. Currently, the archive for podcasts is empty because we haven't uploaded any episodes. Let's change that. Hosting. This is just the settings that we configured when connecting our Castos account. We can disconnect our Castos account, connect another one, validate that the credentials are correct. And the import tab lets you import your podcast from any existing feed or from your Castos hosting account. So let's say when you started, you didn't set up things on Seriously Simple Podcasting. You started off on the Castos platform directly. But then you decided, hey, I want to move things into WordPress while still keeping the files hosted on Castos. Then you can just install the plugin, connect your Castos account over here in the hosting section, come to Import tab, and using this checkbox, you can trigger an import, and that's going to migrate your podcast interface into Seriously Simple Podcasting while keeping the files hosted on Castos platform. And in extensions, you can see a few that we already installed and a few that you might want. If you're using Genesis framework, they have dedicated Genesis support. We installed speakers, we installed stats, we installed transcripts, and they also offer Elementor templates. We're using Elementor. We're going to import those templates once. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of settings. Let's import the Elementor templates because we're going to use them shortly. The Elementor templates have been imported into the library. So now we can start creating episodes. Let's go to the list of episodes, and we see that we don't have any over here. Let's add a new one. So I've also gone ahead and created a simple recording and replicated it in 4 files. It's just the same recording. I've just named it a few different titles, and so that we can have multiple episodes to show over here. So let's call the first one intro, or actually let's call this trailer. The editing experience is what you would expect with pretty much anything else in WordPress. Now, these are the podcast episode details. And it's an audio episode. Let's select the file. I'm gonna make sure that we are in the right folder. Podcast. Yes. So I've selected the MP3 file. So it's directly uploading it to Castos, and then it brings in the URL of the file on Castos platform. You see, it says episodes.castos.com/ then there's some code to identify your account, and then towards the end you have the I think, let's see if it has the extension. Yes, trailer.mp3, because without the right extension, this link wouldn't be accepted in feeds for third-party players. And you can have a separate image for each episode. If you don't use it, it's just going to use the default image of your show. Duration is calculated automatically. Duration and file size, they're both calculated automatically when you upload the file, which is great. And date recorded is something that you can just set yourself. Let's set this to 1st of October for this one. And if you want to upload some episodes that you don't want to show in iTunes and Google Play libraries, you can basically block them from appearing in the feed altogether, or block them from being able to from being allowed to be imported in those third-party libraries. For iTunes, we have to set up an episode number. Let's call this 0. And episode title for iTunes specifically, we cannot have the episode number in the title. So let's say if you, in WordPress, if you're naming your episodes in a like with the episode number prefix, like I'm naming this 1 space hyphen space trailer, for iTunes, you would have to keep the numbers in the separate field and the rest of the title in a separate field, because iTunes recommendations prohibit you from adding the episode number in the title. And season number, we don't have a season yet, we can leave it blank. And episode type would be, this one would be trailer, yes. So you can have trailer, normal episode, which is full, or bonus for extra content, which is not exactly an episode of its own. So this one is trailer, and that's pretty much it. We have successfully created our first episode, which is our show's trailer. And let's go to our podcast front end, which is your site link /podcast, refresh it, and see that we have the trailer listed over here. If we click it, it's going to open the single post view where we have the title and a player with the album art. This orange square is the art that I designed. And you can subscribe. The subscribe link is going to take you to the RSS feed. You can share it. You can change the playback speed up to, I think, 2x. Yeah. And you can go forward, go back. Let's play it. You can download the file. You can play in a new window. You get the drift. I think it's downloading currently. Or I can't hear it because my output device is engaged in this session. But you get the idea. And let's go back and create maybe a couple more episodes that I'm just going to do quickly, so that we have a few episodes to show in an archive before we start building the archive on the front end using something like Elementor, which will give it a really nice front end view for your users to actually enjoy the podcast. Let's add the title, intro, WP-Tonic, quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And let's select the file. Duration and file size will be calculated automatically. In this case, the episode number would be 1. Title would be intro. And episode type would be full. And see the upload progress for this one. I think My internet might be acting up, that's why it's a bit slow, but usually it takes very little time for a file this small. And we're good to go. Let's publish this one as well. Now on this podcast page, we have two. We should have two, intro and trailer. Oh, I forgot to add the number here. Let's call it 1 intro and go back. Add another one. I'll just add a couple more. 2 Q&A with Jonathan. To Q&A with Jonathan. Full. Oh, it's uploaded already. Let's publish. And lastly, add new 3 Q&A with Harun. Let's select the file, episode number 3, Q&A with Harun, full episode, and let's publish it. So now we have a few to work with, and we're going to start building the front end. As you can see in this theme that we currently have active, which is Astra, it shows up as a very bare bones archive with just the title and description that I forgot to add for these two, but I think that's fine. Actually, let me add it. Q questions and answers session with Harun for the WP-Tonic podcast. Update. Let's do the same for the Jonathan one quickly. And we'd be good to go with the next step. Yes, now we have at least some description text with all of them, for all of them. So if you're using a theme that's already supported out of the box, that already supports out of the box this seriously simple podcasting podcast post type. And let's take a look at some of the themes that they might offer. If we go back to settings and extensions, the last item over here was the SecondLine Themes. So they are a third-party theme provider that sell themes that work out of the box really well with the podcast post type of seriously simple podcasting. So you can just grab one of those themes, install them. It has layouts tailored for the purpose, or you can do what I like to do, build everything from scratch using Elementor theme builder, which I use for pretty much all of my builds. Or you can use Oxygen. Oxygen just wouldn't give you pre-built layouts and templates. You'd have to build everything on your own. But seriously simple podcasting provides shortcodes for embedding the player in any template that you build, shortcodes for embedding an entire list of posts, podcast posts. You can do a lot. So let's go ahead into Elementor's theme builder and first take care of this archive area. We're gonna create, so there's a single podcast post type template already imported. We're gonna see if there's any for the archives imported as well. No, there isn't. So yeah, only a single one has been imported. Let's create a new one for our archive. We're going to select archive over here and call it podcast archive. Let's wait for it to take its sweet time, which it shouldn't really, but you never know.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. So we can select pretty much any of these. I'm probably gonna go with this. Yeah, let's just go with this for now. And in this query, in this archive posts widget, in the advanced section, or was it in the layout section? Let's see, where we could select what this archive was for. Or actually it was in the settings. In the preview settings, instead of recent posts, we're going to select this podcast archive and apply and preview. And now we see it shows these posts over here, and it's not showing any featured image for them, but we can just modify. We can probably add a featured image to every episode if we want. It's just the way you do things with Elementor. In fact, I'm going to do something differently, because if I start building the whole archive up over here and the single view up over here, it's going to probably extend this episode way beyond reasonable. So what I'll do is I'll show you what I've done in my own podcast that I've built with Seriously Simple Podcasting. I'll take you to this dashboard, and over here I've got Elementor. And this will let you see some summary of the stats dashboard. Listens today 1, listens this week 1, listens last week 0. So apparently my podcast is not popular at all, because I haven't uploaded a new episode in like a year, over a year. But that's besides the point. So let's show you how I built templates for this one. And how things look on the front end as well. In the theme builder, while the theme builder loads, let's load up the front end as well. It's a video podcast. I thought it would be a good idea for me to start inviting people, influential people from my network, on a live show and interviewing them and sharing it with the tech industry audience, focusing on fintech and startups, blah, blah, blah. So the theme builder has loaded, and over here, let me open the episodes archive. Edit with Elementor, and I'm also going to open single episode view with Elementor. And for the archive, I use LE custom skin, which lets you pick a loop item, which lets you build a loop item that shows up for every single post in an archive. So you can build the single view, the single post view within an archive, you can build that with Elementor if it makes any sense. Generally, Elementor doesn't provide you with enough options to customize every single card or every single item in an archive to your heart's content. It just gives you a limited number of options. But if you want to build every single one of those cards using Elementor, an excellent plugin called Ele Custom Skin lets you do that. You just create a loop item, which it adds apart from the single archive and header footer items, it adds a loop item. So you build that loop item, and then when you have an archive widget added anywhere, for example, over here, I have this archive widget added. I'm using a different widget over here, sorry. So even if I had the archive widget added over here, let's show you for a moment. Archive posts, let's add it anywhere over here. Let's say here on top. And in this, you would usually have classic, card, and full content. But with Ele Custom Skin, you also have this custom option. And in this custom option, you can select the single item that you've built using Elementor. For example, I've built this episodes loop, which is the loop for use as a single view item, and instead of 3 columns, let's make it 1 column. So you see now it's the same Elementor archive post widget, but with my custom data showing, my custom layout showing exactly how I want for every individual item in the archive. And that's what I had done below as well, but with a different widget. So let's get rid of this one for now. The purpose was to show you how we can build a completely custom layout with custom loops, with all of this custom information showing up, using something like Elementor's theme builder, using Beaver Themer if you want, or using Oxygen. The scope of getting it all done would be way beyond what we can cover in this one video. But if you know how to work with these tools,
I think we've covered enough in this. But I just got one quick question. The one thing I think, I was trying to put my shoes in somebody that's interested in using Castos with WordPress, but hasn't got the knowledge that you have and maybe I've got. The one thing I thought we didn't really spell out is when you sign up for this very slick experience with Castos, am I correct that they don't actually supply the website that the WordPress website you have to provide, or do they provide the option of actually hosting and setting up a basic WordPress website as well?
I don't think they do. Their competitor, the one that we had discussed the other day, Blueberry does, but it's very basic hosting. And if all you need is just a bare bones WordPress install on a server setup, that is not good enough for anything beyond some static pages, because that's what they are. They're static pages that can be fully served from cache once you've uploaded an episode. The actual files are not on your WordPress server. For that it works. But Castos, they'll let you do whatever you want on your own WordPress website. So it's more tailored to power users.
They might consider right. I just wanted to clarify that, because I think a few people that was watching this probably would be thinking the same. But I think it's been an excellent introduction on this. We're going to wrap up this particular workshop. Haroon's traveling next week, so he's got a lot of things to sort out today and over the weekend. But we'll be back in November, where we've got some new things to discuss around e-learning, membership, and WordPress. We'll be back in next month, folks. See you soon. Bye.
And before we